Welcome to EWTN's continuing live coverage of the Synod of Bishops on the Family. This is the second week of their meetings inside Paul VI Hall. You can hear the bells chiming behind me as the participants continue to study Part 2 of the Instrumentum Laboris, the working document of the Synod. Tomorrow, they will present the results of these small discussion groups to the entire Synod group at what's called the General Assembly. Today at the press conference, 2 women were present. One was Therese Nikabuye from Rwanda, a member of the Africa Family Life Federation. The other was Moya McQueen of the Canadian Catholic Bioethics Institute. Also present was Abbot Jeremias Schrader, who also took part, a Benedictine from Germany. All 3 are Synod participants. The briefing began with Father Lombardi clarifying 2 topics that have been all over the press yesterday and today. The first was a letter of 13 cardinals that was given to Pope Francis. The letter revealed concerns about the revamped Synod process as well as the suitability of the draft document being used to guide the bishops' discussions. It also expressed concerns that a minority wants to change unchangeable church doctrine. Here are Father Lombardi's remarks.
Cardinal Pell has declared, a declaration that was later published, that it was a private letter to the Pope and that it should have remained private. The published version does not correspond neither in text nor in signatures to the one that was given to the Pope. That was declared by Cardinal Pell, as he said. Who had given this text and the list of signatures to the public has committed an act of disturbance that was not intended by the signatories, especially not the most famous ones.
The existence of the letter shows that there is deep concern of some of the highest-ranking cardinals of the Church that the Synod could be used to make decisive changes that are pushed by a minority. Father Lombardi also made it known that Cardinal Napier denied a statement attributed to him in an interview published by Crux regarding the choice of the 10 people who were supposed to draft the final document. Napier was supposed to have said that he would actually challenge Pope Francis's right to choose those 10 people. Cardinal Napier's exact words were, on the other hand, no one challenges Pope Francis's right to choose them. During the Q&A moment during the press conference, the German Abbot Schrader mentioned that he would like some of the problems dealt with on a national rather than international level. Let's hear his remarks.
Many interventions in the aula have developed the topic that there should be a delegation, an authorization of dealing with issues, at least pastorally, in different ways according to the cultures. I think I've heard something like that at least 20 times in the interventions, whereas only about 2 or 3 have spoken against it, sort of affirming that the unity of the Church needs to be maintained also in all these regards, and that it would be fatal to go into such a delegation of authority. I'm from Germany, and it seems to me that, for example, the question of divorced and remarried people, or who are divorced and are living again in a stable union with children, is felt very strongly and very broadly in the German Catholic public. It seems to be much less of a concern and elsewhere, and that seems to me an area where maybe regional pastoral solutions could be envisaged.
Let's talk a little bit more about this with my first guest on today's show, who needs no introduction to our EWTN family and to anyone in Rome for that matter, and that is Joan Lewis, EWTN's Rome Bureau Chief. Joan, welcome to the show.
Great to be back with you. We've been partners for a while.
A while, and nobody knows Rome and the Vatican more than you do, so I'm so glad you can be here. There's a lot to get through. Let's talk about this press conference first of all. A lot was brought up, which we just heard, but I'd like to talk first about that letter, which seems to be dominating not only Catholic headlines, but secular as well. What do we know about the letter? What's true, what's false? What do we know at this point?
At this point, we know that Cardinal Pell has said it does exist. It is much more of a clarification than a critique of the methodology of the Synod. We don't know the exact content of the letter. I mean, I've printed out some of others, what was on the internet when it was revealed by a journalist who, by the way, has had his credentials removed from the Holy See press office. But that whole letter apparently does not correspond to what actually was handed to the Pope. So we don't know the exact contents.
Yeah.
We do know, we have found out, at least 4 of the so-called 13 signatories, cardinals, have publicly declared that they had nothing to do, they did not sign any such document.
Okay, a document does exist. So a letter was given to Pope Francis.
Right.
What it said, we don't know.
No.
Who exactly signed it, we don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
But again, this is kind of distracting from the work going on at the Synod, where I think maybe whoever sent the letter was
Right.
just looking for, you know, maybe just voicing concern.
Well,
Privately to the Holy Father, a private letter.
Well, and that's true, but the problem is the original letter that came out that we are now, we are told that is not the exact content of the original letter. What was given to us on the internet, it's what's in that that's causing some of the headlines and some of the division.
Yeah.
So we won't see it because it is a letter private for the Pope, so we won't see the real one.
Right.
But we do have to get over that because there's much more at stake here in the Synod. You've had the Synod Fathers debating for almost half the Synod period now on reconciling the spirit and the letter of the law, reconciling doctrine and mercy. How many times have we heard that?
Right, mercy
from
and
the
revealed
Pope?
truth. That's a topic in part 2, which they are studying this
Exactly.
week right now. Yeah.
Exactly.
And there's a struggle there because Pope Francis and his emphasis on mercy and also the need to maintain the Church's teaching and uphold that is at the heart. You're exactly right.
And what you are hearing, the majority of what I'm hearing and reading and what we've heard in the press conference, the majority are for maintaining church doctrine, church teaching. If not, do we just become another church, not the Catholic Church?
Right,
If we
okay.
let go of our doctrine.
Right.
But reconciling, this has to be a huge, painful burden for bishops. How do I reconcile, should we say, the divorced and remarried who want the sacraments? They want to be part of the church.
Well, and that's it. The Pope Francis, you know, maybe in his view as universal pastor, so there are so many souls, so many sheep, as he would call them, who are outside of the sacraments and are not permitted because of the, you know, choices they've made or, you know, whatever. So he's trying to find a way to get them back. And
Exactly.
so I think that's what they're, not just about divorced and remarried Catholics, so many issues as pastors that deal with the family.
But one of the interesting things is, Mary, we know, Pope Francis said last year at the 2014 Synod, and again this year, he has told the participants he wants them to speak openly. And so that might be boomeranging a little bit in the Pope's face, because, I mean, they are speaking openly, and you do see it is not 100% agreement on this or that topic. You have different people. And Father
how can
mentioned
total
it.
agreement can be possible? It's not possible to get
Well,
all these people to agree. So.
Lincoln said it perfectly. You can please some of the people all of the time, all the people some of the time, but never everybody all the time. And that's happening here. But I think we have to look at what we've just been talking about and what we heard Father Jeremiah say, and that is the inculturation bit.
Right.
You have people from the Universal Church, the Catholic Church, every single continent, languages, many, many cultures within one continent.
Right.
You can have a marriage, problems, issues regarding marriage in Africa that will be very, very different from America or North America.
Right. And this is why we've heard a little bit of what's called a decentralization or
I think the word is devolving.
Devolving.
Devolving power, even.
Exactly.
In other words, certain things can be set and established here in Rome, but can other things, without affecting doctrine, can other things be done at a local level by the Bishops' Conference?
For the problem you just mentioned.
Acculturation.
Because the acculturation, and they're so different, and what can work in the U.S. it may not work on the other side of the world. This is something, what do you think? Do you think they're going to...
Well, I think that's a
this?
very, very interesting challenge, and if no final decision is made by Sunday, October 25 at the concluding Mass, that either may be part of what we do see eventually go into the final document being given to the Holy Father for consideration. Will we have a final document? Actually, we don't know that. Or will everything that has been given to the Pope come out in his own final document in 6 months or a year
Right, we're going to
or
have to
whatever.
wait to see if we get something. One other clip that you and I both enjoyed was actually from yesterday's press conference, and I wanted to bring that up. Married couples have been speaking to us at the press conferences recently, and one of the Brazilian couples, when asked by a priest, covering the Synod as the priest is a journalist. And he said, what's been the most surprising thing for you at the Synod? And of all the answers that they could have given, this is what they said.
They said, do we have that tape? Yeah.
Yeah.
I found something very surprising after we arrived here to participate in the Synod, and that has been to see what the press has been publishing. That has been quite surprising in the sense that many times it doesn't reflect what we see in there. There seems to be reports where basically the material we read seem to try to be suggestions of what the Synod Fathers should be talking about.
So we just found that a little, of all the things they said. We were
Brilliant.
actually surprised by the media coverage.
Yes.
So, yeah. But Joan, quickly before.
And a member of the media asking the question.
Right, exactly. And he's a priest himself.
Yes.
What do you think, before I have to let you go, what do you think are the challenges that are emerging? We're halfway right now.
Right. I think what we're seeing are, I'll just mention three things. We're seeing the risks of idealizing marriage and family life, making it too ideal or actually making it too negative. We just have challenges or problems. And there's also the task, we've just kind of spoken about it, the task of putting together all of the converging views, making them converge from the different cultures. So you've got all of those different aspects. And a very important thing mentioned by so many Synod Fathers has been the need for a newer, user-friendly language for some of the categories, if you will, of people we're talking about, not referring to them as outsiders or whatever, but a language that will bring people back, make them feel loved.
And that starts that process, doesn't it? And, a more welcoming language and an outstretched hand, and then who knows what that can lead to. It's the sheep. It's all about the sheep. And all the pastors of the flock are here. Not all of them, obviously, but
the others are
impressive.
listening.
Yeah, but it's impressive to see a room full of pastors, and Pope Francis is there. And as one cardinal told me, he's there when we walk in there. He's there first. He's there to greet us personally. It's not that he enters the room. We're there. He welcomes us, and so I think it just says a lot about this papacy.
But he gets up at 4:30.
Right.
Every morning,
I
Mary.
do too.
He should be first.
I don't know why, but I wish I didn't. That's all we have time for with Joan Lewis. Again, Rome Bureau Chief, thank you so much for joining us. When we come back, we'll have one of the married couples from the Synod here in studio with us to talk about their experience about being invited to participate in this historic Synod. Stay tuned. Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the Synod on the Family live from Rome. My next guests are Tony and Kathy Witzak from Philadelphia. They were invited by Pope Francis to participate in the Synod. Tony and Kathy, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, Kathy, I guess I'll ask you, how did you find out, how did you get the news that Pope Francis had invited you both to participate as a couple in the Synod on the Family?
We got this envelope in the mail, and it, had unusual printing on the top, and it had the Vatican seal in the corner, and we opened it up, and it was amazing. It was a letter inviting us to participate in the Synod, and it pretty much said, thank you for saying yes.
Are you going to say no? No.
Very one-sided invitation.
Yes, but you were very excited, surprised.
Oh, yes.
I guess. Okay.
It was in September. We didn't get our letter until September, although it was dated July. So we were worried. It's like, oh, it took so long to get to us. Maybe they don't,
Yeah. Well, Vatican mail, if anything left from Rome, it's going to take a while.
Well, it came through the papal nuncio in Washington,
in
D.C.,
DC,
so by the
right.
time it got to our diocese and to us, it was a little bit of a journey.
And you do a lot of work with Marriage Encounter. Either one of you, feel free to answer that. Explain that, because I think that's one of the main reasons that you've been invited here. This is the focus on the family, how to make strong marriages, keep strong marriages. So whichever one you'd like to respond, explain the work that you do in helping married couples, and what is it that you tell them to keep their marriage strong?
Marriage Encounter is a weekend for couples, and also priests come on the weekend, and sometimes religious sisters or brothers. it's a weekend where the couples can focus on each other and their communication skills. So they start out by looking at who they are individually, then who they are as a couple, and then who they are in relationship to the sacrament, and who they are in relationship to how they bring God into theirs. But we teach them a communication technique. And I think the fact that they get away from the modern world and can spend time looking at each other allows them to talk about things they wouldn't have talked about on the shore or on vacation. And they listen to a couple and a priest talk about a topic like communication and how it relates to them, and then they write some reflections on it, and then they go back to their room and share those reflections, and then come back and hear another talk by another couple and a priest. So it's a progressive kind of a weekend.
And we made that same weekend many, many years ago. It had such a profound effect on our relationship. It brought back the joy and the hope, and also gave us that new energy for serving the church. So we certainly wanted to pass that along. Of course, we didn't know we'd still be doing it 30-some years later, but what a joy it has been.
I have only heard the most wonderful things about Marriage Encounter, and anyone who's ever gone has just come away renewed. And I think this is something that you can share with the Synod Fathers. And in regard to Synod, you're one of 18 married couples that have been invited to participate. So as married couples, as a kind of a group, if you were, what's your role inside the Synod Hall?
You can ask Kathy.
Well, we're auditors.
Which
so
means
that
you
mostly
listen. Right, okay.
We mostly listen. Obviously, we listen to all the Synod Fathers. And then at some point, we also get a chance to do our little 3 minutes, and which is the same as the Synod Fathers get, which is amazing because, you know, we're treated so equally. And then in the small group circles, we get to participate. And we're involved in the discussion, and sometimes we're even asked to word things for them, which is very exciting, you know, to help them with the wording of some pieces that refer to marriage or family.
Yeah, we'll offer reflections on the family when that's one of the topics that they talk. We're working right now through marriage preparation, through following couples after they're married, to how this influences the family and the relationship with each other a lot.
How has the reception of the bishops been to what you had to say?
They're wonderful. We're so impressed with the giftedness and the openness of our bishops and cardinals to listening to us and to also listening to each other. It's been a wonderful experience.
Have you given your discourse yet? That will happen on
testimony.
We think it
No.
looks
Friday?
like Friday
I think
afternoon.
it'll
Friday
happen
afternoon.
Friday.
What can you give us a preview? Kind of a.
Well, it's basically our journey in relationship. We talk a little bit about Marriage Encounter, that, you know, there's over 6,000 presenting couples like us around the world. It's 100 countries, and give them some little bit of a factual. But I talk about the weekend, how I didn't want to go on the weekend initially. But I love Kathy enough that she signed us up.
Is it usually the man dragging his feet in?
Usually.
We don't want to generalize.
80%
I'm
of the
just
time.
kidding.
But how in the closing mass, after we went through the 40 hours and looked at each other and talked to each other and shared, is when I looked and saw, I guess, the love that Christ had for me in her eyes, that did it.
That is beautiful. That is so beautiful.
And it was great for me too,
Yeah.
you know, just to regain that. You
So
know, you'd think sometimes that deep love is lost forever when you get into the doldrums of marriage.
Right.
But when you discover that love is a decision, you can have that every day, you know.
Yeah.
So we write love letters to each other.
You too, that is wonderful. Like weekly, monthly, or
Every day.
Every day.
We call it our 10 and 10. We write on a topic. Right now we're writing what happened today in the Synod.
Right.
What's my feelings on that? A little bit on the reflection, but my feelings on. And then we sit down and we'll share I'll read hers and she'll read mine twice, once for the head, once for the heart, and then we'll talk about the feeling portion of it.
It keeps
and
us
explore
close
it.
and connected in ways that we maybe wouldn't be if we didn't talk about
But
it.
these are things that people can try from home right now. I mean, these are just
Yes.
very practical suggestions, and these are the suggestions going to the bishops, and hopefully they'll take them home, again, to be implemented on a worldwide level, and hopefully they'll make more contact with Marriage Encounter and organizations like yours. And
we have a number of bishops who actually present weekends for us.
That are here.
That are
Oh,
here.
okay, so like a reunion, yeah.
It's like in a couple of cases like a reunion, but the number of bishops who, as I said, we're in 100 countries, but even in the United States, we're probably in more than 70% of the dioceses, and those couples support us. Those bishops support us. In many cases, the bishops are asking, could you bring Marriage Encounter into our
Yes.
diocese? We need that marriage prep.
Yes. Do you see the marriage and family being threatened maybe as never before? I mean, the threat seems so overwhelming. I don't want to exaggerate. Maybe there have been other times in history, of course, we didn't live in, but it just seems to be so dark right now for Christian families trying to stay together and be close to Christ and raise, healthy Christian families.
It seems that way, but at the same time, I see in the young people a new hope.
Really?
Because, yes,
that's where I thought
because-
there would be less. Okay.
No,
Oh, interesting that many of them are really wanting to live marriage the way it should be lived and choosing to go in that direction.
When everything in the culture is telling them the
Exactly,
opposite.
right. Yeah, one of our daughters has a community in Minnesota that, to us, it's great, where the families meet one week, then the wives meet one week, the husbands meet another week, then they meet as couples one week. And this is a wonderful way to build the community and have all kinds of support for building good marriages.
Haven't we heard a lot about this, Tony? Like during the Synod, I've heard, as journalists, we just get the reports, but I've heard about the need for families being missionaries.
Yes.
Good, solid couples being missionaries to newlyweds, people just their first year, maybe people even just engaged. So do you agree with this idea of missionary families, one helping others and building community that way?
I think what we're finding is that the bishops are beginning to reaffirm. I don't think that we've lost it, because all the bishops have talked about the fact that they really support the thousands and thousands of couples out there living God's plan. But they're beginning to see that our couples and families are evangelizing. That people don't necessarily hear what we say, but they look to us. They look to the family. And that's evangelization when they say, I like to be them, or what do they have that I want? It's like watching someone walk down with gelato and say, I want one of those.
Well, you do see people who have true joy and love, and you say, I want that. I would say that's a sign of holiness. A holy person is someone you say, I want to hang out with that person. Something attracts. And so I think as you guys convey the beauty of your own beautiful marriage, that's a witness to, you never know who you're witnessing to.
No, you don't, you don't.
We had a young lady in our parish came up to us after Mass one time and says, would you pray for me?
She didn't know us.
And you didn't know her at all?
No idea. We said, why? She said, because I've been watching you.
Wow.
Now, we're an example,
something right.
but those stories are all over the place of people.
One last question before I have to let you go is, you're so lucky. You get to be inside the Synod Hall because Pope Francis is often in there. Not that hanging out with the bishops and cardinals isn't that great too, but did you get to meet him? And
We did.
You
we
did?
We were, we were out there that first morning, and there's a sea of black, and we didn't know very many people. And here was a familiar face.
Pretty hard to pick
You
him out
knew
all in
him.
white. But we've met him before, but
okay.
this is a more personal one because we have some things we'd like to have him bless, some roses. But yes, just to realize that, hey, he's one of us, and he's walking around having coffee or juice, and
at
he's
the coffee
talking.
breaks?
Oh yeah, he's
at the
at
coffee
for
break.
the whole
He comes
coffee
at the
break.
coffee
He comes
break.
down.
Now, he doesn't always have time to have any food, but he shakes
I can
people's
imagine.
hands.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is wonderful. It's so
It's his
loving.
humanism.
And what we did was we thanked him for coming to Philadelphia because we're from
He
Philadelphia.
was just there. I mean, you guys just got done with that visit, and Archbishop Chaput is, of course,
Yes.
here. I don't think he had time to recover between this and that, and so
We had lunch with him today too. He
You
said, "I'm
did?
still kind of where am I?"
we need to send him on a great vacation after all this is over. Thank you so much for
you're
being on the
welcome.
program this evening. We really appreciate your input, and we look forward to hearing more of how this Synod is going to help families and married couples.
We have a lot of hope.
We're looking forward to
Great
that,
things
too.
happening.
Thank you so much for being on. That's our show for this evening. Remember, for all the latest information on the Synod, visit our special Synod page on EWTN.com and follow us on Twitter at EWTN. Send us your questions and your comments using the hashtag EWTN Synod. We want to hear from you. I'm Mary Shovlin. Good night from Rome.